Yeah, many of you really appreciate you being here. First of all, it's nice to see some longtime contributors to the Sustainability Office and some new friends joining us. And we hope that that continues throughout the Our Green Future planning process. This is an exciting time for us at Dartmouth. As you may or may not be aware, in 2016, we did a planning process like this one at the president's request. And we developed a report called the Our Green Future Report, and we delivered that to the president, providing him with a set of recommendations for sustainability goals moving forward. In that report, and from those, President Hamlin made some public commitments, which I'll reference as we move forward. In that report, we made as well a commitment to revisit the report and to provide new recommendations every 5 years. So this is the beginning of that 5-year revision. And we are hoping that all of you will contribute your thoughts, ideas, passion to the process, and therefore to Dartmouth sustainability goals moving forward. Go ahead, Dallas. So, I think probably if you're on this call, you're aware of the urgency of global climate change, and that's something that helps me pop out of bed every morning to work on this issue. And our region, is likely to be deeply affected by climate change as we move forward. I think importantly, that's not just about temperature, but also about things that impact our identity. So we think of, New Hampshire being the place of maple syrup and leaf peepers. Those are things that are going to be impacted by climate change as we move forward. And those things shape our identity and are really core to who we are. We're also seeing the impacts of climate change on our campus here at Dartmouth. I've been in many conversations about stormwater, for example, and how stormwater is changing, or how snow at the skiway is changing, that are sort of climate change happening in real time and policy changing on the ground to respond and mitigate climate change on the ground, whether that's size of culverts or frequency of sprinkling or changing what we plant, for example. And I think while that is stressful, it also can provide some real opportunity. And I think it is easy in this moment to get overwhelmed. Importantly, we've made a lot of progress since our last Our Green Future report in 2016. And I just wanted to highlight one area we've made progress, which is on energy efficiency. So some of you have seen this before, but the blue arrow on this graph represents campus growth. That is the number of square footage on Dartmouth's campus. The green arrow represents our energy consumption. So even though Dartmouth has grown since 2005 or 2000, our energy use has declined since 2005 and is continuing to decline. And that's critically important as we move forward. It's also interesting to think about how long should the blue arrow go up? Is there a point at which we should offer goals around efficient use of space instead of expansion of space? But I think this represents a real achievement, and we should be proud of what we've achieved to date. And many of you on this call have worked on this, whether it's Scott Henning in engineering, or Carol, who's been pushing us with student groups, or all of you, many of you have contributed to creating this impact. I also just wanted to highlight the fact when you work on climate change, it's really easy to get depressed. And when you work on sustainability, it's really easy to get down. And I wanted to draw your attention to the fact that emissions in the United States, the European Union, have been declining. In the European Union, over the course of my lifetime, emissions have declined. Over the course of our, Sophie Edelman on this call, a student's lifetime, emissions in the United States have been declining. And I think when we ask our students, hey, have emissions been going up or down over the last 20 years? Most of them say they've been going up. And they're wrong. We've actually been reducing emissions in the United States. And I want to highlight that because I think it's easy, again, to get really pessimistic, but the global population is a big ship to turn, and we are turning it. And that really matters. Now, obviously, there's work to do. China, India, those countries have growing emissions over the same period of time. But we in this country have a lot to do to impact that as well. It's also worth saying that the impact of the Industrial Revolution and fossil fuel, while it has driven climate change, it has also improved life expectancy, literacy and education, and poverty on a global basis. So again, it's really easy to get depressed, but now is actually the best time to be a human in the course of human history. That does not mean it's the best time to be every human. There are many people who are suffering right now. But globally speaking, and on average, it is the best time to be a human in the course of human history. And that's a thing that I really want to highlight because I think it's easy to get down. I mentioned that in 2017, the Our Green Future Report provided recommendations across 6 operational areas. Those were energy, waste and materials, water, food, transportation, and landscape and ecology. From these, President Hanlon publicly adopted goals related to energy and our greenhouse gas emissions, which is what you see in the chart on the right. The green line are the goals that he adopted in 2017. In addition to it being an exciting time because we have an opportunity to revisit these goals, it's also an exciting time in Dartmouth's history because we are about to experience a leadership transition. And incoming President Bylock is very interested in a new set of sustainability goals. So I wanted to just highlight for you the fact that she is paying attention to this process and that she is looking forward to the outcomes of this process.
Sorry. One moment. There we go.
So the goals that President Hanlon publicly recommended were related to our greenhouse gas emissions, a 50% reduction by 2025, an 80% reduction by 2050 from, importantly, a 2010 baseline, which is an energy dorky thing to point out, but we moved our baseline from our previous goal from a 2005 baseline to a 2010 baseline in 2017, which means we kind of increased the thumb screws a little bit on ourselves by not giving ourselves credit for changes made from 2005 to 2010, which I felt was really important. We have an opportunity to look at that again. Do we move the baseline again? An interesting question. We also made goals around renewable energy and our distribution efficiency. And we have made a lot of progress on our distribution efficiency in particular, and our greenhouse gas emissions. And President Hanlon committed to a waste study, to a working group on food, and to form the Sustainability Corps, which is a group of students who works under Marcus Welker in our office to provide data and assessments of our sustainability indicators currently. And that's really important. We have many areas, for example, landscape and ecology, transportation, food. We're just getting our arms around our sustainability impacts is challenging. If you think about, Tammy Moffat's area of procurement, there's a ton of things in that bucket. And it's very difficult to track the sustainability impacts of all of those things. So in some areas, our first question is how do we get our hands on those data and how do we develop a baseline? We have made a lot of progress, which I've said repeatedly, but I think important to note, you might have seen all around campus signs of our transition from steam distribution to hot water distribution. That transition will improve our efficiency by about 20% on energy. Our greenhouse gas emissions have declined 30% since we made our commitments. That's really important. We still have 20% to go in 2 years to do it. So it's an ambitious amount of work. And I know that the energy group and engineering, Scott and Abby and others are working really hard on that. We have a lot of students have engaged with this process in the Sustainability Corps, in the Food Working Group through experiential learning. And that's been really important. And we have a really good group that's been working on waste since we began this work. Waste has been a really difficult issue to solve. We also have a lot of assets in the Dartmouth campus. And I think first among those is all of you on this call. The Irving Institute for Energy and Society, represented here by April, and members of the advisory group, is a really important asset, which Dartmouth developed in the time from the last time we did this to now. We have a new health and climate group, which is embryonic but developing, and that's really important. We had a group from procurement reach out about equity in procurement. That feels really important. And then, the assets you already know about all around the Dartmouth campus, like the Arctic Studies Institute and our office. And I think really importantly, senior leadership have, from the board to the president to the senior leadership group, sustainability is no longer being driven only by sustainability advocates. There are now people in those groups who see sustainability as a critical core imperative, not as, many members of the board used to see this as a sort of extra thing. And I think that's not true anymore. It feels like a core function now. So it's much easier to convince members of the board, for example, to consider long energy paybacks or things that they wouldn't have considered in the past. And I think that really matters. So we have an exciting moment in front of us. We're really excited that all of you are going to participate in it. And we have an opportunity to present outgoing President Hanlon and incoming President Bylock with a new set of recommendations that he and she can adopt. Our deliverables for this process are those recommendations due to President Hanlon and President Bylock in March 2023, and a clear articulation of what our unique opportunity is on sustainability and climate. I think importantly, Dartmouth's identity on this issue is often focused on things like energy efficiency and things that are not necessarily showy and flashy, and that we have maybe done a not great job of packaging. For example, building great walls in the life sciences building. Difficult to talk about awesome walls because they're not sexy like solar panels, but they're really important. And there's something in that kind of flinty approach that I think we could really lean into. And then last is a roadmap and clear assignment of responsibility to move this forward.
Thank you, Rosie. Yeah, so one of the things that Rosie covered is sort of the history of work to date at Dartmouth, and all of you might have different touch points with Sustainability Office and within your own work. So again, back to using Menti, we have a question for you. We would love to know how strongly you agree or disagree with this comment that Dartmouth College has strong foundations in the following areas. And this is community.
Alice, could you take a second and introduce yourself during this process as well? Because I realized I did not introduce you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Rosie. Hello everyone, my name is Dallas Scott, and I am leading the sort of the high-level project management of our Green Future process. So my background is with working with the people side of the equation, and I'm really thrilled to be able to support Rosie and her team here today. And if you haven't met Rosie's team, maybe we could do a quick welcome of Rosie's team as well. So there's Laura.
Hi, everyone. My name is Laura Brash. I'm an assistant director in the Sustainability Office, and I focus primarily on our experiential learning programs and our organic farm program.
Yeah, we have Marcus.
Hi, everyone. Marcus Welker, also an assistant director here in the office, focused mostly on our data and analytics.
And we have Jack here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jack. I am a sustainability fellow in the office, mostly focused around the organic farm and first-year programs for the office.
Thanks. And supporting me today from my team at Trust is Azanta. All right.
Hi, everyone. I'm Azanta. Nice to meet you.
All right. So I'm seeing people are trickling their questions here today in response to this question of how strongly do you agree or disagree that Dartmouth College has strong foundations in the following areas? I'll give you a couple more minutes. All right. Our next question is, how true are the following statements? So how true are the following statements? That Dartmouth's commitment to sustainability was one of the reasons why you decided to work here or go to school here. That after leaving Dartmouth, if you're not a student, the commitment to sustainability will be an important factor for future employment. That after leaving Dartmouth, the commitment to sustainability will be an important factor in seeking a future employer. That you feel like your time at Dartmouth has helped you be better prepared in taking and leading in climate action. That sustainability competencies have become an integral part of operations business, nonprofits, and government entities. And students equipped with sustainability competencies are in demand by employers. All right, we're going to be seeking another form of input now. In 5 years, what should we be celebrating as our greatest accomplishment? So as we're updating the Our Green Future report, what would our greatest accomplishment be in 5 years from now? Thank you. You're typing them in. This is really wonderful to collect. All right, you're welcome to continue to add the additions to our slides here to those questions. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to shift and share a little about our planning process with you today. So obviously the call to action in the work to date is helpful context. One of the tools that we want to share with you today is what is going to be the process to update the Our Green Future report.
Dallas, can I just interject briefly that the Menti will stay open during this meeting, but it closes after the meeting. So you can keep putting in long form answers during the meeting. We are putting up a web-based tool that will enable you to contribute at any time, but it's not live yet. So just so you know.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So here we are launching in October. There we had both an in-person sort of launch kickoff, and here we are with our virtual one today. And we're also doing Ideation Roadshow to get the community feedback and idea generation, to hear from people beyond the working group, which we're going to be working with much more intimately. Each one of these meetings is going to build on the one before. So we are going to have sort of our stepping stones up to which will the updated report by the March timeframe that Rosie mentioned. In between there, each one of these meetings is going to be very specific to a working group. So it's going to be the smaller group of people with a very focus on developing goals and strategies and actions for implementation. Throughout the entire process, we're also going to be having some core values, because we do want to ensure that we are hearing from everybody. So commitment to full participation, to be present, support open and equitable discussions, to share collective wisdom for inclusive solutions, accepting the shared responsibility of the outcome, because implementing sustainability on a campus requires distribution of responsibility, and to have fun with this process, because this really is a fantastic opportunity, and we're so excited that you're here today. The next thing is recognizing roles and responsibilities. So the planning team, which is the sustainability office, the president office and trust, is really the project management, strategic meeting preparation, doing all the work so that we are utilizing your time, because we know time is a resource that is very limited for everybody. So those who are working group members, your responsibility really is just to show up and give us the best knowledge that you have, right? So this could be your knowledge that you're bringing from your research. This could be your experience of working on campus throughout the years, and your perspective as a student. All of these things count as really valuable knowledge that you're going to be bringing to the table for each of the working groups. These working group meetings are going to be remote. They're 90 minutes, and we're going to be really efficient and effective with your time as we move the group in parallel forward. There is going to be at times light homework between meetings, often reviewing materials in advance or responding to surveys in order for us to get the most out of in-person meetings. And then also each working group is going to have a chair, and they have very similar roles to the working group members, except the addition to their responsibilities is they're going to be our liaison to leadership, to an advisory group, to ensure that there is a clear connection between what you're working on and what leadership expectations are. So at the end of the day, there's a meeting of minds towards the end, and no one's caught off guard with the final draft deliverable that is brought forward. Throughout the process, we have these guiding questions that we are going to have everyone want to think to themselves around equity, resilience, education, communication, and how to operationalize this plan. Because what we're not aiming for is just an updated plan. We want an implementable plan, right? And so that's where a lot of the wisdom of the group and all of you is going to really help us ensure that we are centering ourselves with these guiding questions. So at the highest level, this is sort of the framework of our little decision-making process in the groups. We have each one of these focused areas, and these are the working groups here. So they're going to be part of the working group members' ideas and feedback and experiences. And also throughout meetings like this and other ones that are being held on campus, we're going to get insights from the community that are going to support the direction for each of these focus areas. And then the co-chairs, or excuse me, the chairs are going to report up and have an opportunity to check in with our internal leadership advisory and also the president, so that once again, we are creating a pathway forward that can be implementable and has that buy-in. And these are going to be checkpoints that happen along the way. So we continue to develop buy-in from all the necessary stakeholders across campus. Okay, so thank you for those small group discussions and to our note takers today. What we're going to do now is we're going to do a quick report out. So if you wouldn't mind, our note takers are also going to double as just a high level overview of what the group covered, just so we can do a bit of cross-pollination and hear a bit about what other groups were talking about. So I'm going to start with you, Jack, and then Laura, and then Marcus, just about, you know, a 60-second overview from your group discussion.
Absolutely. So a couple of the questions that we were asking were focused kind of around not just our emissions that we're talking about, like our scope 1 and 2 emissions, but also how we're going to be counting our scope 3 emissions, the things that we can't really account for, that are almost impossible to account for just in terms of carbon dioxide, but also a lot of the things we talked about in risks and opportunities were about Dartmouth's location in the Upper Valley. So in opportunities, the opportunity to communicate with the community about this process and developing our local economy and supporting local businesses who will help us support Dartmouth's sustainability goals. But also there is a risk that if we don't have our action aligned with the community's input, there's like a reputational risk for the college, and there's to be a clear transparency with like what the college is doing throughout this process with the community and the people who are involved in the process.
Jack, thank you so much for that report out, and to the group for having the discussion. Laura, to you.
Awesome. We had a good discussion. We had folks in our breakout group that were from lots of different areas of the college. So we were all really excited about the opportunities that were presented for students to get involved in this process. And I think Julia said really nicely, like, this is a once in a century type of learning opportunity to do this type of big sustainability change work here at Dartmouth. So how can we get students involved in this in a big way was something that we chatted about. We had some concerns come up about sort of like understanding the baselines, like how can we be having this planning process without fully understanding where we are, especially just like understanding those baseline of our sustainability system, and how do we compare to our peer institutions as well. So those are a couple of points that came up. Also thoughts about like the opportunities that exist around telling the story of this work, that this is a big opportunity as well to share this work as hands-on learning opportunities, really in line with Dartmouth's core mission as an educational institution.
Thanks, Laura. And that question about baseline is very important, right? You have to look back to be able to go forward. And one of the first working group meeting where everyone's broken up into their focused areas is to kind of settle in to what your baseline is, to understand what you know, and also to understand where you don't know. And that is always a helpful starting point as well. If you don't have a baseline, that's a good place to start. Okay, and then last but not least, Marcus.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Dallas. So similar questions about data and data transparency came up in our group around questions. And how might we improve transparency of information? Was just sort of where we landed on questions. I think one of the opportunities and risk discussions that we had that was nice with Scott was to talk about kind of the direct impact that some of this work has on staff members here at the college, and that there are both opportunities and risks to that, and it's important that staff members and community members can continue to engage in this process. And one of the goals that we talked a little bit about was one of the current goals for 2025 and one of our energy goals and our CO2 goals, and how it's coming up very soon, and how kind of what the outcome of this process is will have really direct impacts on how the college moves forward. And so that was something that was important. And I think also just continue to keep up with community forums and community engagement was something that our group found really important.
Yes. Thank you, Marcus. And that's a great transition, I think, to the next slide of, keeping engaged, keeping informed, keeping the community as part of the process and not an afterthought. And so we have a question to all of you of how you will stay engaged through this process. I know some of you are within the working groups, and so you are going to be, part of each one of those meetings. But some of you are as part of the community, and also in other walks of your responsibilities across campus. How are you going to engage in this process going forward to support, just supporting Dartmouth's efforts to amplify, use your voice and personal platform, invite others who might not know that this is going on to take part in the online forum that's available for folks. All of these things are an important piece of making it disperse beyond just who's in this room right now. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to be talking about next steps. What are the expectations going forward? So your insights will be shared with Dartmouth's working groups. If you're a part of the working group, it'll definitely be a part of all future working group processes. We'll be sending out updates to our planning process, to participants who've participated in all these ideation sessions. On the next slide is a place to put your email just to ensure that you're on the mailing list to get those updates. And then we hope to reconvene the community in the spring to share progress. So again, these touch points are going to be really valuable throughout this entire process to keep people informed, have that transparency available, and then also celebrate, right? Because this is really important work, and I'm really grateful that you're all here today and that we can open up the door to invite others in as well. So right now you should have a prompt to put your email address in. That will ensure us that we can keep you up to date via email. There's lots of other ways that we'll be informing the community as well, but that one's the most direct. Giving people a quick moment to do that. And then going forward, we have just a few minutes left today, but we have some final questions for you as we wrap up today's session. Okay. So what other questions or comments do you have? We would love to, if there's any outstanding questions or comments that didn't come up in your working group, or just things that are motivating to you that you want to share with the group, feel free to put them in this section here. And then while you're thinking about any questions or comments that you have, we also just would love to get a sense of how true are these following statements. That I understand our green future planning process. I understand how to stay informed of the Our Green Future planning process. I felt my questions were answered. And then I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this planning process. And while people answer these final questions here, Rosie, I'm going to pass it back to you sort of to bring us home of any final thoughts that you have from today.
Just that I want to thank everyone for being here and for your time and attention to this issue. Dallas mentioned in one of our kind of community agreements that there's a full participation community agreement. And I feel like this process will be as good as the participation we put into it. All of you are experts in your areas, and having voices from around campus and around the Upper Valley community contribute to this process is really critical to its success. So I appreciate your time today. I appreciate your continued participation as we move forward. I appreciate your expertise. And again, I feel like we have a particularly exciting opportunity because of the moment that Dartmouth is in, the moment that the world is in, to provide the college with a roadmap forward that is exciting and that is impactful in positive ways in the Upper Valley, and that also is inclusive and moves Dartmouth forward and into ideally a leadership position on sustainability that is true to our nature, true to our mission, and impactful among our peers. So I appreciate so much your participation. I hope you will continue to chime in the ways that work for you and continue to participate in the working groups and community forums as we move forward. Thank you. I guess that's my main takeaway.